Oh, good heavens. Today, we are learning new details about an extraordinary, alleged massive college admissions scandal that appears to shed light on how far some super wealthy parents might go to get ahead and get their children into elite schools. The case, brought to light by a massive FBI investigation, involves a fraudulent admissions, quote, consultant. Admissions to elite colleges, Division I coaches, Hollywood celebrities, and prominent business leaders. 50 of them have been charged in this scheme. At the center of the scandal, a man named William Singer. Get to know this guy's name. The founder of a college prep company known as The Key. From 2011 to 2019, officials say parents paid this guy anywhere from 200 grand to more than $6 million to cheat. I'm going to say this one more time. Not coach their kid, not help them, to blatantly cheat the system. In some cases, Singer allegedly created fake athletic profiles, and he bribed coaches to accept students as recruits. Students, ready for this, who didn't even play a sport. Like in the case of this student, or this person, August Inahuneas. This is a Napa wine magnate who wanted to get his daughter into USC. He is accused of hiring Singer, who then sent the water polo coach at USC this photo. This photo is of another student. Singer told this man in a follow-up conversation, "You can't tell it's not her. It's athletic enough." In other cases, Singer is accused of working with SAT and ACT administrators to allow a third party to secretly take the exams in place of the actual students or replace the students' exam responses with his own. Here's what's even more disturbing. Singer used his nonprofit. Ready? Let's get sick here. His nonprofit, Key Worldwide Foundation, whose website says its mission is to provide guidance, encouragement, and opportunity to disadvantaged students around the world, as a front so that parents could pay him massive sums that, get this, were tax deductible. Now, it is important to note, the U.S. Attorney says that the colleges are not co-conspirators and that the schools themselves have not been charged. Yesterday, Singer pleaded guilty to counts of racketeering, money laundering, fraud, and obstruction of justice. He also admitted that he helped bring down his own scheme by cooperating with the FBI and wearing a wire. As the Massachusetts District Attorney saw it yesterday, the real victims of the case are the qualified, hard-working students who played by the rules.
As every parent knows, these students work harder and harder every year in a system that appears to grow more and more competitive every year. And that system is a zero-sum game. For every student admitted through fraud, an honest, genuinely talented student was rejected. The parents charged today, despite already being able to give their children every legitimate advantage in the college admissions game, instead chose to corrupt and illegally manipulate the system for their benefit.
Oh, baby. Joining me now to weigh in, Anand Giridharadas, Time Magazine editor-at-large, MSNBC political analyst, and the author of a book I highly recommend, Winner Takes All. My friend Jason Johnson is here, the Root.com political editor and MSNBC political contributor, and a professor at Morgan State University, and Rick Tyler, Republican strategist and MSNBC political analyst. Anand, I must go to you first. When I saw this, I'm like, holy cow. This is a raging ball of fire at the heart of everything you have worked on. These parents, we know that the system, we know that college is now a business, okay? Admissions officers have metrics to meet. What used to be a college admissions process is now a system. They need to up the amount of applications. They need to lower the amount of acceptances. They need to focus on this and get their bond rating higher. We know institutionally they need to focus on possible families who could be big donors to the school. These families legally could rig the system and say, I've got a cool $2.5 million, let's put a building with my name on it, and those kids would get in. But that wasn't enough for this crew.
First of all, I want to thank these wealthy parents for reenacting like a performance art piece based on my book and what I've been trying to warn people about for a few years. What is so fascinating about this story is the rigging of America over decades for the rich and powerful has now succeeded to such a great extent that I think certain rich people actually feel like the rigging is a commodity because all rich people benefit from it. And it doesn't make them feel particularly special to merely have things rigged in favor of them the way it's rigged for all rich people. All white people have an advantage in the college game relative to others. Affluent people who have better public schools have a clear advantage in that game. These people wanted what I call bottle service rigging over and above the generalized rigging they already benefit from. And it was so striking, this guy Singer really knew how to talk to them. And he says in some of these wonderful transcript in the indictment, you know, my people, they don't want to get in through the front door, which is having to get in themselves. They also don't want to get in through the back door, which is giving some $10 million check, but you don't know. There's no guarantee. You just get a second look. They want the side door. They want a guarantee. My people want a guarantee. And the fact, as you pointed out, that the mechanism for a lot of this was charity, was the ruse of helping the disadvantaged, right? I mean, it's such an extraordinary thing. And it's important to note that while all the attention yesterday, a lot of the media attention, focused on two female actresses, because we are America, and that's what we're capable of focusing on when 33 people
I wasn't
get ensnared.
Focused on them, to be honest with you.
The most important person charged yesterday was Bill McGlashan.
Tell our audience who this guy is.
Bill McGlashan is a partner at private equity firm TPG.
One of the biggest, most successful private equity firms on the planet, founded by brilliant, hardworking guys.
If bad is good, this is one of the best.
Yes.
And TPG is not only a massive private equity firm. In recent years, as you have covered so much, there has been a mounting chorus of criticism of capitalism, how capitalism works. That's come from Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. It's come from the Occupy movement. It's come from all corners. And that's been outside pressure on capitalism, right? But there has been a move within some of the citadels of capitalism to say, you know what? Y'all are right about a little bit of this, right? There's been shared value. Michael Porter at Harvard Business School. There have been people, you know, conscious capitalism from the guy who started Whole Foods. A bunch of movements within the system to say, we can fix this with it. We got this. Don't tax us. Don't occupy anything. We got this. And who was the dean of this? TPG started a $2 billion fund called the RISE Fund.
Good capitalism.
Run by Bill McGlashan.
Do the right thing and make money.
Help the capitalism can be used. We who built this rigged system, we can de-rig it. We're the leaders. And guess who we got? Because you got to get this guy if you want to legitimate your fund. You got to get Bono. So Bill McGlashan and Bono, last month, a couple months ago, sitting in Davos in their parkas, sitting there talking about how that capitalism can lift people up. And to me, it is a signal moment for this new capitalism, impact investing world, that one of the deans of this world, who said that he could be a leader of helping the disadvantaged, was in fact, when he went home at night, working the phones to ensure that the same kids from Africa or from Appalachia who he was empowering with his fund would never be able to compete with the seat that he was locking up for his own kid.
But he wasn't home helping his son study or getting his son an SAT tutor.
Right, these people should spend less time on private jets and more time with their children.
Yeah.
Jason, you're a college professor.
Yeah.
Talk me through what this means to kids on college campuses, because even these people's children, it's the ultimate vote of no confidence. They've lost their ability as a normal 17-year-old to say, what do I care about? What's important to me? What one of the thousands of schools could be right for me? No, these parents said, let's not waste our time with an SAT tutor. I don't want to miss vacation. Let's just lock you in at Yale.
There are so many different levels to this, Stephanie. So first and foremost, this is where helicopter parents come from, right? This is where grade inflation comes from, because this is also about the parents. I want to say that I got my kid into Georgetown. Doesn't matter if the kid doesn't want to go there. It doesn't matter if the kid wants to go to Rutgers or go someplace. The parents want this more than their kids do. And on top of that, they're willing to pay for their mediocre child to get into any institution that they can brag about. I will also
just hold on. This is the thing. That child isn't mediocre. But maybe he or she is not a great student. But the new measures that those parents are qualifying that you count or you don't, right there, well, I can't accept that my child is mediocre, so I must cheat.
Well, Stephanie, see, this is where the second issue comes in. I think this is a combination of class, access, and of course, race. The presumption of merit that white students get, that students of color do not, is all over this particular story. My kids last night talking about, I teach at an HBCU, my own experience. I had people calling my high school to see if my transcript was correct. I had people calling high schools to see if I deserved to get into Chapel Hill. Every single African-American professional can tell you a story about how they were questioned, how they were scrutinized, how their schools were called in different levels. And that didn't happen to any of these kids because the assumption was you're white, you're rich, so it must somehow, some way be okay. And I do not believe under any circumstances that some of these students didn't know what their parents were doing. If you get into a school to play a sport that you don't play, you're getting different emails, you're getting different registration. This isn't the first time these parents have rigged.
You come to school a month early.
Exactly. So this isn't the first time these kids have had something rigged for them on the behalf of their parents. This starts at private elementary schools in New York and Chicago where kids get extra time because their parents can go doctor shopping and find someone to say that they have a learning disability. This is all combined. And I will say this about the consequences. This is important. You got teachers in Atlanta who are going to jail, right, for fixing tests. You've got Kelly Williams-Bowler, a black woman who was sent to jail for 10 days because she used her dad's address so her kids could go to a better school. You have Camila Campbell, who was a high school student this year in Florida, who got brought in and has to get a lawyer to prove the fact that she improved her own grades by 400 points on the SATs. Every single one of these parents should be in jail, and they're not going to go because they're white and they're rich and they have access.
Can I just make one small point on that? Just a very small thing. I think to your point, which is very important, is the university is getting a bit of a free pass here.
Yes.
If this is true, if what's in the indictment is true, hundreds, this guy said 800 in 1 year, of students were going to universities. The test scores thing may be harder to detect, but people who were not real soccer players, who had a photoshopped face put another soccer player, they show up destined for a soccer team. Are you not keeping track of large numbers of recruited athletes who never end up playing the sport? So Stanford, Yale, Georgetown, 3 places I'll probably never be invited again. I think I would be curious about how far this complicity goes and who's actually untouchable even in a case like this.
Right.
Wow, that's stunning. I do have to point out Paul Manafort's sentencing has just begun. We're going to monitor that. Rick, is there a silver lining here? If what we're saying is the system has been rigged and the rigging has gotten worse year after year, because I spoke to a number of admissions directors or former admissions directors last night who said the system is flawed. This isn't why we got into education. Is there a silver lining that maybe this atrocious case could crack things and make us take a look? Because if this case hadn't come into focus, we wouldn't be talking about it. We wouldn't be thinking about it.
No, it's an opportunity to unwind systematic rigging, because I believe you're right. The students do know about this. These kids are dumb.
Right.
Nobody just goes up 400 points on their SATs
and the
without
colleges,
setting their tushkis off.
Exactly. And that's what this young lady did, and she was still being questioned.
And the colleges know it too.
Yep.
And what I'll be interested to see is the admission process is supposed to be fair and equitable to everyone. And now let's see if the justice system is fair and equitable to everyone, because this is a great test case.
I know the answer to both of those, and it's no.
I hope you're wrong.
Me too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this can't be overlooked. This is not a victimless crime. Okay, you only have 128 spots at certain schools for athletics. There's a kid out there where golf was the only way she was going to go to school. Tennis was the only way she was going to go to school.
That
opportunity was stolen from her.
Exactly.
Yes. Stolen from her. And the way in which these kids, and we've seen the video of one of their daughters, the way in which these kids can operate in privilege. When I think about me and my friends who were asked every day, you got here because of affirmative action, you got here because you're black. These kids walk around oblivious to the privilege with which they have been given, and will be the first people to challenge people who look like me or you when we get in school.
I got to read you a quote from the indictment, which is so striking. It's a quote from Singer about something he heard from the kids. So the kids go in, they've been trending at like 1,100 on their practice tests or whatever, right? You walk in, you get a 1,500. Wow. So nice, right? How do the kids process it? How do the kids process it? This quote is so telling. He summarizes what a lot of these kids say. He says, maybe I should do that again. I did pretty well, and if I took it again, I'll do better even, okay? The reason this quote is so significant is it shows how rigging leads to feelings of supreme merit in people. The more you rig things and then give people a boost they didn't deserve, the more they actually experience it psychologically as deservedness. And then you end up with a country where that person 30 years from now is going to be running some hedge fund, right? And maybe raping and pillaging in the economy, running some nursing home, levering it up with debt. People are going to die a little bit, overdose a little bit on pain medic, whatever.
A really nice conversation without talking about Donald Trump. I don't know why.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Or Brett Kavanaugh.
And then they'll give a little to charity. And when someone like me, 30 years from now, maybe my children, is saying, hey, hold on, how's this thing working? They'll say, I earned this. I earned this. And they may not know 30 years from now
and
that they got a 400-point boost because someone else actually took their
But that is one of the reasons it's so crucial for these parents to get their kids into these schools. It's not just a learning institution, it's the fast track for life.
Yes.
If you go to one of those
These families
schools,
are already rich. I mean,
but
what's
it doesn't
the fast
matter.
track?
They're rich, but they want
still
their
matters
kids.
to go to Yale.
But
Right.
they want to make
Does?
sure that
Yes,
because
it does.
Yeah,
Yes, it
absolutely, because they want to make sure their kids are getting the same career opportunities. Investment banks recruit from 5 or 6 schools tops. If you are not in one of those schools, you end up in the non-target pile. I used to run non-target recruiting. You know what that pile looks like? This. It's a giant pile that goes nowhere. And if you don't have a connection, you're at the bottom of that pile. But if you go to one of those schools, you will be recruited for the most elite industries. That's where companies go. Career services is massive. If you don't have that at your school, if you don't have alumni who are going out of their way to build, to support their network and hire the next generation of kids, that's what's going to help those kids. You know that from being on a college campus.
I see this. First and foremost, I have to say, anybody who actually works in a university will tell you this doesn't shock them entirely. We have seen this before. What makes this so egregious is that they didn't attempt to rig the system later. Most parents have their kids apply, and if they don't get in, that's where you mention the check. The fact that you are trying to bribe people up front, the fact that you're willing to break so many laws to do so, that's where the real issue comes in.
But Jason, here's the stupidity. They could have rigged the system ahead of time. When their kid is in the 7th grade, they can meet with the development officer.
If you have $1.2 million,
you could hire a tutor.
make your kid good at fencing.
Right, exactly. Yes.
These people aren't even
10,000 hours,
smart.
that's all you know.
Right.
They're
They don't
smart,
even
they're
sp-
lazy.
But they don't have to be. And the other thing about this is we read the transcript, and I was saying this, and we were talking about this earlier. It reads like a Lifetime movie. Like this, Lori Loughlin can star in her own movie. This is also about access because everybody came through recommendations. So this isn't just about being rich. You got to know the right kind of people who can let you in on these kinds of tricks. And that's the other thing that we need to break up when these people are hopefully held accountable for what they did.
Then let this be an opportunity to do the right thing.
I just got to say, Americans need to wake up. This is not the first thing. Our president essentially got where he got through doing many of the similar things with taxes in his own education.
Somebody in the White House's parents gave $2.5
Everybody in
million
Silicon
bucks to get
Valley
into
doing what they're
Harvard.
doing.
Who was it, Jared?
You know, we need to wake up and take power back from these folks.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.